Hey everybody, welcome to Cousin Jack Carve. Today we're going to carve a hillbilly. So this little guy, I posted a picture on social media. I called it Hillbilly Yoga, and it kind of blew up. So we'll be going through a tutorial, and I want to share with you how you can make your own little hillbilly yoga and have some fun doing it. We'll probably have a few different segments. Today we'll go ahead and get it all set up. I'll show you all the markings you'll need to put the pattern more or less on your block of wood, and we'll start some roughing out and have fun. Let's get started. Just to give you the dimensions that we're working with today. This block of wood is 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch square by 3 1/4 lengthwise, and in millimeters that's 38 by 38 mils and 83 mils lengthwise. Now what you may have already noticed is that this guy is very square. You can see on the bottom, right? The block, you can definitely see the block is still there, very square. And when we look at the profile views of this hillbilly here, you can see it is still very square. And what does that mean for us? Well, that means we don't have a whole lot of wood to remove, but the wood we will remove and the details that we carve will need to be significant to give an illusion that this is a figure rather than a square piece that it is. So I'll tell you, this is something that didn't really have a plan. What I mean by that is I posted some pictures of this little guy on social media. I called it Hillbilly Yoga, and it sort of blew up. My friend Holly Smithson was the first person to say, well, Jack, are you going to do a tutorial for this? And I hadn't planned to. When she said that, I thought, well, yeah, I may have to consider that. Well, there were a number of other people who also said, yeah, love to see a tutorial. So we're going to give it a shot. So today I have my block of wood, and we'll kind of walk you through the setup on measurements and where things kind of align on this block of wood. As I mentioned, it's 1.5 by 1.5 by 3 1/4, 38 by 38 mils by 83. So the first thing I like to do is, find my center. I just make an X on the top and the bottom of my block so I can know where the center is, and then from there draw in my center lines. And I would encourage you to do that as well. Put an X on the top as well. Find those center lines, and then of course use your pencil to make a center line on each of the 4 surfaces, right? Those are good reference points for you. And even when you carve off your center lines, you'll still have a reference from the bottom or the top, usually the bottom. So once we have our center lines in place, we'll go ahead and start configuring our hillbilly. So the hillbilly's nose will be the first thing that we're going to do. And from the top, we're going to come down. The measurement is going to be 1.5 inches, 35 mils. And that's where we will find the top of that nose. All right? So we're going to make a mark for the top of the nose. And really from there, the bottom of the nose is going to be 1/4 inch. That's 6 mils below that. And then you're just going to draw in sort of a rectangle. Make it a little bit larger than 1/4 inch rectangle. Just keep going around the border until you get a little extra space there. And you do want to round your corners on your rectangle to make your nose. So next we'll go ahead and kind of pencil in the brim of the hat. For that, we're going to come up from the bottom 1.5 inches. All right? We're going to make a mark on each side here at the front. 1.5 inches from the bottom. And that's 38 mils from the bottom. Mark over here, mark over here. I do want to thank all my viewers outside of the US who've encouraged me to use millimeters, and make sure that we mention those as well. So next we're going to make some marks on the side along the center line. So we're going to go from the front where we just made our mark here. And we're going to measure back and make a spot, just a little mark. You're going to do that on each side, of course. Back from the front, where we drew that line, back. So the next thing we'll do is come back here to the front. We're going to make a little bit of a mark where we had that original line. We're going to come up a 1/4 inch and make a mark here and here. Then we're simply going to pencil in the flow of this brim, right? This brim is going to kind of slope back to the other mark that we made on each side, just like that. Next, we'll put in the fold along the front of this hat. You can see on this guy, we've got the fold and it wraps around the side a little bit. So on the front, we're going to go and make a mark. From the top of the nose, we're going to come up 1/2 inch. So you're measuring from the top of the nose up 1/2 inch, and you'll make a mark there on the center line. And then from there, you're just going to draw in the slopes. You already have marks out here for the fold that are 1/4 inch, right? And then you just draw in the arc of that fold. So now you've got the front, which is kind of flipped up there. The front of that brim is all marked out. And then of course you've got the side coming around here. Now some of these marks that we're making, we will carve off some of these marks and have to remark them. But I want to give you these marks because some of you, experienced carvers, you're going to take what I give you here and you're going to run with it. Other carvers will want to carve along and sort of watch the progress. I want to make sure we have all of our audience covered there. So when I mentioned on the front, coming up 1/2 inch from the top of the nose, I just reminded myself, that's 13 mils, okay? Coming up 13 mils to make that mark. Next thing we'll do is sort of create a space here. We're going to have a cylinder, more or less. And that cylinder is going to be this spot where the jug and the hands are going to be located. We're going to want to leave as much wood in the center as we can and then be curving that back a little bit. We want to create some roundness, and so that's the cylinder that I'm talking about right now. So we need to make sure that we understand where that's going to be. So from the bottom, we'll come up 1/2 inch, that's 13 mils, and make a mark on the center line, and that's going to be the bottom of the jug. All right, measuring up from the bottom, 1/2 inch, 13 mils, that's where the bottom of the jug will be, and it's going to be resting on his leg there. Now from the center line, we're going to go in each direction. We're going to mark 3/8 of an inch, that's 9 millimeters to the left and 9 millimeters to the right, so 3/8 and 3/8 each side. And then from the bottom of the jug, we're going to make a measurement of 3/4 of an inch. From the bottom, 3/4 of an inch, 19 mils, up to this spot on the center line, and we'll make a mark. That's where the top of that jug will be. And again, just as we did on the bottom, we'll come out 9 millimeters, right? 3/8 of an inch this way, and 3/8 of an inch this way, and then just pencil in sort of the boundaries of this cylinder. So now you should have a really good solid idea of where that's going to be. And you can see that the hands are going to be in there as well. So we definitely need to account for those hands. From the bottom of that cylinder, we were just going to come up 1/4 of an inch, 6 mils, and make a mark for the bottom of our hands on each side from the bottom of the cylinder up. And then from that point, we'll go from the mark we just made. We're going to go up 3/8, that's 9 mils, and make a mark for where the top of the hands will be. Okay? Just getting some dimensions, getting some perspective on the size of those hands and where they're going to be. To make space for the fingers and what have you, we're just going to go and make a mark from our center line out just a little bit. So when I say that, I'm talking about 1/8 of an inch, maybe 3 millimeters. So here's my center line. I'm going to come out 1/8 of an inch in each direction, this way and this way. And that 1/8, that's 3 mils. And then just make my line to give me a reference point, kind of blocking in where those hands will land. Next thing we'll do is put in the shoe. So on this little guy, you can see he's got his shoe sitting up here on his leg. Shows up really well from the side view. And I did actually make a shoe little peeking out right here. You can barely see it from underneath his knee. You can do that or not. You know, you can easily just continue the pants leg over and not worry about adding just the touch of a shoe. Either way, whatever you desire. So let's put in the markings for your shoe. So on the front, we'll come up from the bottom 3/8 of an inch. That's going to be 9 mils. From your bottom, you're going to come up and make a mark on the front. That'll give us a reference point for the sort of the side of our shoe, really is what it is. Next thing we'll do is go over onto the side. We're going to measure from the front to the back. We're going to go 7/8 of an inch. That's 22 mils. And we're just going to draw a line, 7/8, 22 mils, to give us the edge of that shoe from front to back. So next we'll come back to the front. The mark that we made for the edge of the shoe, we're going to come up 3/8 of an inch. That's 9 mils. And that gives us sort of the width of that shoe. We're just going to block in where that shoe would be. Now, one of the things that you want to do is you want to make things touch as much as you can. That'll help you avoid fuzzies. You don't want to give yourself these little narrow canals where you can't get your tool in there and take care of your cuts. So you'll see that the arm is touching the shoe, this leg is touching the shoe, and the bottle, this jug, also touches the shoe. Okay? So as much as you can, you want to make these things touch each other instead of having some small little opening that is very, very difficult to deal with. All right, so the next thing you'll do is just finish out your rectangle that you have for your shoe. You take your mark here from the top, come back that same distance that you had on the bottom, and sort of just draw in your rectangle for the bottom of your shoe. Now, to mark out the heel, all you're going to do is come from the back edge of that rectangle. You're going to come forward 1/4 inch, which is 6 mils. Kind of draw in the mark for your heel. And then, of course, you can just round this to kind of give you where that rounded heel would be. All right, so we're almost done with our initial setup. Next thing we'll do is just kind of draw in where the top of the shoulders are going to be and get ourselves busy with some carving here. On this little guy, the top of the shoulders are going to be 1 1/4 inches from the bottom of our block. So we'll come up 1 1/4 on that center line. That's 31 mils, and make a mark. Now usually when I put in shoulders, I reference that center line. I like to think of it as, well, it really depends on the posture, I suppose, but in this case, I've got probably 1/3 of that shoulder behind the center line and 2/3 of it kind of arcing out in front of the center line. I think it's pretty well how I've got it set up on this side. Of course, you can see this arm's a little different than the other arm, okay? On this arm, it's the opposite. I've got about 1/3 here of that shoulder in front of that center line and 2/3 behind. Now you would say to yourself, well, yeah, wouldn't they be the same? Well, typically they would. This guy, he's got his shoulder shifted forward a little bit to lean his elbow on this shoe, whereas on this side, he's got his shoulder back a little bit more. It's a little tiny little detail. You don't have to worry about that, but if you want to. Then, you know, you just come here to the line we made for that heel. You can draw yourself sort of a nice slope up to that shoulder. Make a line here, put in a crease for the elbow, and so on. Like I said, we'll be carving off a lot of those things. All right, I think we're ready to get rolling. Let me get my gloves on, and I'll be right back. So I do get questions. I want to let you know what I've got here. This is what's known as a Wizard glove. It's a Wizard brand glove. I've got some safety tape on the fingers here for a little extra grip and protection. And over here, this is a Dex Fit cut resistant glove that I wear on my carving hand. And you can see I've added some safety tape because it's getting pretty worn. Yeah. In addition to that, I have my Hillbilly medium detail knife, which tends to be my go-to knife, and I have an overgrip wrap on there. If you have any questions about these things that I use, just look in the description below this video. You'll see some links to some of the things that I use. I do have some links in there for you. So why don't we go ahead and start by sort of finding out where we're going to have the brim of that hat. So let's come up here under the brim. We'll make a little stop cut here. And take off a little corner. Come over to the other side, do the same thing. Yeah. And I do like to take the corners off of the block pretty early on. I think it's a little easier on my hands when I'm carving if I take off the sharp corners. So I do recommend that. You know, in some cases you want to be careful not to remove too much wood, especially on a piece like this. I showed you how square this one is. And on some of the other carvings I've done, in particular the angel tutorial, I needed every bit of the width of the block for the wings, and so I had to be really careful about removing too much of the corner early on. All right, so I got a little ahead of myself. I need to tell you about the other markings for the brim of the hat before we go to cutting. So you'll probably recall that on the front we measured up 1.5 inches, 38 mil to make this mark and this mark. You make the same marks along the center line. Again, 1.5 inches on either side, coming up 38 mil, making that mark. So, and then drawing the line for the brim of the hat back towards the center line. All right? And then we'll put in the rest of the brim. So on our back here, back of the piece, we're going to come up from the bottom 1 1/16. That's 29 mils, and make a mark. This is going to be the back of our brim. And we're just going to mark pretty much a straight line across the back at that point. Okay? And carry that around the side far enough to where you can see it. Then you're going to make this other line. You've already got the front coming back to the center. Now we know where the back of the hat will fall. We're just going to make this slope just like this on each side, okay? And there you go. So we kind of made a little notch on the front. We'll come back here to the back of our hat, come underneath the mark there. Gonna rock that blade a little bit and carve up to it, make a stop cut there, right? Same thing on this corner. We'll come in here, rock the blade, carve up to it. There we go. Now we'll just make a stop cut all the way across this line, like that, and carve up to it. Just start to rough in this hat, okay? And then on the side, same thing. We'll just sort of, we've got this notch at the front. We'll just sort of bring that back to that center line. Make that stop cut. And relieve it. And then we'll make our slope coming down this way. Turn it upside down a little bit here. Carve up to it for me because I'm left-handed. And we'll do the same thing on the other side with our stop cut here. When you get to the corner, just rock your blade, okay? One of the things that beginners might make, or even a novice carver, you have some pressure on your knife, you're trying to make a stop cut, you get to the corner, it's very easy for your blade to slip and you hurt yourself, okay? So when you get to a corner, stop and just rock your blade. Just like that. Okay, so now we'll just carve up to our stop cut here. And relieve that cut. Again, we're going to make the rest of the brim just slope backwards. Stop cut and rock. And just carve up to it. Come up here to the top of the nose, where the top of the nose touches the brim of the hat. Going to put the tip of the knife right in there at the center line and bring that down along the brim and rock the knife at the corner. We're also going to make stop cuts around this nose just to prevent us from having issues cutting off anything we don't want to. So let's do that right now. We're just going to put in a rectangle of stop cuts around that nose. We'll be happy that we did this later. All right. Now that we have our stop cuts all the way around the nose, we have a stop cut coming down the brim right here. Do you see what I see? Yes, that looks like a triangle, doesn't it? So we'll go ahead and make a nice triangle cut. Put the tip of that blade back in there again, good and deep. Kind of drag it out this way. Come back at it from this direction, right? Good and deep. Bring it down. Now we're going to carve with the tip of the blade up into the corner. And that's going to help us relieve that cut and get some depth, right? And we'll just finish up our stop cut over here. There you go. Let's do the same thing on the other side of that nose. So again, we're going to come up here where the nose touches the brim of the hat, right on the center line. And just carry our cut out to the corner where we're going to rock that blade. Come back in here for our stop cut next to the nose, get the tip of that knife in, drag that down a little bit. And this one's going to be a little more tricky for me. This is going to be upside down, okay? Something you need to get used to though, unless you're going to switch hands. I am somewhat ambidextrous, so I could possibly switch hands and come up here and pop that thing out with my right hand. But I don't, I rarely even try that, so why? It's better to go ahead and get used to carving upside down, folks, because you're going to need that skill, I believe. All right, so we just kind of bring the tip of that blade up into the corner, and out she pops. Pretty good. And then again, we're going to finish up this stop cut, just relieving that area right there. Yeah. Okay, so I think the last thing I want to do right now to kind of set in where that hat will be and make sure we have it kind of covered. We want to make this fold. The brim, as we know, is folded here. So we'll come up to the top of that fold, put our blade in, and make a stop cut, bring it to the corner, rock the blade. Now we know that this is going to wrap around. So I'm just going to extend that down along here like that. I just want to make sure that I have this stop cut in place so that when I go to relieve a lot of this or take off a lot of this material for the hat, I don't go ahead and carve off the fold of the brim that I do need, okay? So we'll come over here to this side again, make a stop cut, just like that. And we'll make a cut on the side where the fold wraps around. Again, just to make sure I don't go carving that off. All right, our next piece of business here is to start whittling down the top of this block and making ourselves some room for a nice old hillbilly hat. So the idea for this, I was just thinking about what to do, and I had put up a poll on my YouTube channel. There's a community tab on the YouTube channel where I post some pictures once in a while. And in this case, I posted a poll, and I said to the viewers, I said, what would you like to do for the next project? This is a while back, and Hillbilly was very, very popular among the folks who responded to the poll. And after that, I decided to go ahead and do the Itty-Billy tutorial, which many people have said they enjoyed that a lot. It was a fun project, sort of a cross between a gnome and a hillbilly. And then this time around, like I said, I didn't really plan to make this a tutorial. I was just going to go ahead and carve a hillbilly, and I thought, well, how can I make it different than every other hillbilly that I tend to see out there? I thought, well, hillbilly doing yoga would be pretty different, and so I wanted him to be in this lotus position, and I thought he needs something more, and that's why I put the jug in his hands. So I'm just going to continue removing some of this wood here for the hat. Rounding is what we're doing right now more than anything, okay? Removing this wood. And when I talk about this guy being square, probably the most rounded part of this particular carving is going to be the hat. Now, the hat is also one of the largest parts of this carving, maybe the largest part altogether. And I wanted that. That was part of the design. I wanted to have a great big old floppy hillbilly hat. Now, if you wanted to, of course, you could cut this out on a bandsaw, or if you have a coping saw, you could use that. It doesn't really take too long, though, if you have a good knife, to remove some wood and get down to where you want to be. In this case, what I would encourage you to do is continue to reference your markings on the top of your hat. So you can see already, when I look at this, for example, I can see, well, I'm over here, I've got more material still than what I've done over here. I've got more material towards the back than I have at the front. So I've taken off more from the front, which is intended. I do want that. In this case, I do want to bring this over some. Now, by design, I will be leaving more material on this side of the carving, right? Because that's where I built in this fold at the top of the hat. You can see there is more of an angle from the front than there is from the back. That's also by design. So we'll just continue taking off some more of this material, removing bandsaw marks and adding some rounding to our hat. And yes, you will wind up carving your center lines off, right? We know that's going to happen. You can always redraw them if you need to, and you may not need to. Now be careful about that fold. I was coming up on this corner here and I almost went and took out the fold. It will be smaller than what it is right now, right? I'm going to round that corner at some point in time, but right now I want to leave as much material as I can there. Come back up here to the top. Here's my center. And just seeing where I'm at here, I'm going to go ahead and remove a little bit more wood here. So with this piece being relatively small, using a medium detail knife for me, which is 1.5 inches, the blade length on this Hillbilly, works out very well. I can do so much. I could probably do the whole carving with, this one knife. It has enough detail characteristics to it and enough blade to rough out large chunks of wood wherever I really need to on a carving this size. So from the bottom of our brim, we have about 1/2 inch before we hit the top of the arm, okay? So where that top of the arm would be, we're going to just go ahead and make a stop cut, rock our blade, and carve down to it. We'll do that on both sides. Come in here, rock the blade, and remove some wood. Now what we're going to do then on this particular carving, we know that the top of the jug is here and that cylinder will be right in here. So let's go ahead and make some stop cuts around this cylinder just to protect it and make sure we don't have an issue with removing the wood that we're going to need when it's time to make that. So I made a stop cut along the bottom here, and I'm just going to bring my knife up underneath that stop cut and relieve that a little bit. I'm going to come along the side here, make a shallow little stop cut there. Doesn't have to be deep. Remember, we have our hands that are going to be in here as well. So we don't want to take too much wood away. We just want to make sure that we have a stop cut in place. Sort of a placeholder for us as we go ahead and carve. We'll do that on both sides. Now you could do this with a V-tool. A lot of carvers do. They'll grab a V-tool and just sort of put in some reference lines to make sure that they have them in place before they go to, hog off a bunch of wood. So if you want to use a V-tool, yeah, have at it. So now we've got our cylinder in place. We're going to start removing more wood here and here along the front. So let me show you what that looks like on this guy. So you can see we had some space reserved here, right? Am I good, Sonny? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. We have some space reserved right here for our cylinder, and we need some depth along the sides here for that beard with this guy being so square, this is one of the only spots where we have to remove any significant wood, really, is up underneath the brim of that hat on either side of that beard. So let's go ahead and work on that. We'll just come up under there, start carving up to our stop cut. And you see that knife slipped on me there. Yeah. So that's why you wear a glove, folks. I can't tell you why that slipped right then. I don't know. I thought maybe the wood broke on. Oh, it did. Yep, there it is. So it actually sliced right underneath and went through that stop cut. It did not stop. And I'll be gluing that. Be careful, all right? Be careful with your cuts. I'm going to go up here and sort of reintroduce that stop cut. I don't want to have that happen again. Wearing gloves is something that I like to do for my own protection. I encourage you to do it for your protection. I know a lot of carvers will tell you that they don't wear a glove for a reason. Sometimes the reason is they feel like it gives you a false sense of security because you can still hurt yourself. That's true. You can still hurt yourself even with gloves on. It has not happened to me. I've certainly hurt myself without gloves on. But with gloves, I've been fortunate enough to say I've never had a cut while I was wearing a glove. And yes, I wear 2 gloves. So we're removing some of this wood from either side of what will be the beard. We're going to carve up here to our stop cut on the underside of that nose, being careful not to remove the nose. Okay? Come up under there. Don't get in a hurry when you're carving. There's no reason to be in a hurry. You really need to just enjoy it, right? That's what it's all about. And yes, I do. I take my time when I'm carving. For me, it's all about the journey. It's as enjoyable as the finished product for me is just working on it. If you have sharp tools, that is. It's an aggravation when your tools are not sharp. I've been through that in my early days of carving when I didn't have the knowledge or the tools I needed to sharpen. Yeah, that was a struggle. Okay, so what we're doing here is rounding the front where that beard is going to be. Okay. Trying to be very careful on this side because I've already got this slice that I know exists over here. We need to go ahead and round the front in order to give ourselves that look we're seeking when it comes to the beard, and also creates some good depth underneath the brim of that hat. And we'll come back in here where we had our triangle. Clean that up a little bit. Let's go ahead and continue sort of roughing this guy in a little bit more. On the back, we're going to come up, looks like about 3/8 of an inch. I'm sorry, 5/8 of an inch. And make our mark. This is going to be the hairline. Okay? Hair is coming out from the bottom of the hat and sloping up a little bit on either side. In this case, we're going to have the hair coming up to that center line and kind of sloping back and then connecting like this. We'll do the same thing on both sides. Okay, coming up under that center line there, and then sort of a gentle sloping backwards there. Now you can see where I have good sort of penciled in my arm, and then I've got him wearing a coat, and with his coat it sort of drapes around the back of him. So on this side with the shoe, you can see I have the coat sort of curving around behind that shoe and then sloping down. And then on this side, starting up here below the forearm and then coming back around to the back of the leg. So why don't we make a stop cut for that hairline that we just drew in there, unlike my hairline. All right, so we'll go from here and bring it to the corner, rock that knife a little bit there at the corner. We'll continue along the back with our stop cut here and follow to the other corner again, rocking the blade at the corner. And then we'll come to the other side and put in our stop cut for the hairline, just like that. All right. Now we're just going to carve up to our stop cut, being careful here not to take too much wood. We want to leave some material here for the coat, of course. And as I showed you, this guy is relatively square. Sometimes you have to go back over your stop cuts once or twice. That's okay. Like I said, take your time. Not a race. And once we have this stop cut in place, that'll give us a good reference point for the hairline on this guy. Again, you could come in here with a V-tool and do some of this work. Next thing we'll do is come to the top of the shoulder. We're just going to make a cut up underneath here. We want to give him a shoulder, just like that. When I first carved the other guy, I thought I was done, and I looked at him, I thought, wait, something's not right. Well, he didn't have any shoulders. His torso just kind of tucked up underneath his hair and everything, and I wanted him to have some shoulders, so had to redesign a little bit. And I was just kind of freestyling on that guy. I didn't really have a pattern or anything. I was just wanted to have fun, carve a hillbilly, you know, on my own. And so, yeah, ended up with no shoulders. Not a good look. So next thing we'll do to rough this guy out is just put in some space here for the legs. We're going to go across the bottom of this jug. You know, we've got the reference point for the bottom of that jug is resting on this leg. So we'll come in here on the corner. This is where his knee will be, and the arm is going to be touching that knee, so we don't need to take out a great big chunk of wood. We just want to make a little slice right there, okay? And then on this side, we have the bottom of the shoe. It's really the side of the shoe. And we're just going to make a little bit of a notch where that will be. Okay. Now on the carving that I did, the Hillbilly has this leg out in front of the other. So we're going to make a stop cut coming from the shoe, sort of about 1/3 of the way up on the shoe, right? And curve that thing down towards the bottom here, just like that. And then just bring up a stop cut, or coming along that stop cut in the other direction to relieve that. This is sort of a narrow V cut that we're doing here, folks, okay? To give us our reference line. On my guy, I do have a little bit of a peak at the shoe underneath this knee. So that's going to be over here. It's like I said, something you can do it or you can skip it. Now that I know where this leg is going to be over here, you can see I'm going to bring that back to the center line like this and slope it back a little bit. The coat is going to be draped over here. So now I just want to carve up to that stop cut that we just made. Yeah, when that wood broke on me earlier, it was really strange because when I looked at the wood, I thought the corner's going to be missing from this guy's hat, and it wasn't missing. This knife is very sharp and actually went right through there so cleanly. You can see where it came out. See that? Yeah. A little glue is going to fix that, but we have to be really careful. All right, so we just made that stop cut along the side here. I'm just going to take off some more of this material to round that leg a little bit and remove some of the bandsaw marks. All right. We'll come over on the other side here. We'll make a stop cut along the bottom of that shoe, or what's really the edge of that shoe. Bring that back. And then on our coat, we're going to have it coming back around that shoe, around that heel, and then downward. So I'm going to come from the point where the coat will be draping downward. Going to come down to the edge here and rock the blade, okay? And now we're just going to relieve the stop cuts we just made right here and right there. And as we did on the other side, we'll remove the bandsaw marks and just round this corner a little bit more. Kind of got a frame of reference now for the coat coming back around that leg, and also a mark for the shoe, separating it from where it rests on the leg. Okay, just to kind of wrap up today, we'll come on to the back, round these corners on the back where the coat will be. And again, we're removing the bandsaw marks as we do this. And I think that's going to be a good place to stop for today, folks. So we've got our markings in, we've done some roughing out on this piece. We'll pick it up next time. I'm going to guess we might need 3 segments to finish this guy off. And we'll have fun doing it. I want to thank everybody for watching and for hitting that like button. You know, that thumbs up really helps to spread the news about the video. It helps other carvers find the video. So if you have a second to click the thumbs up, I appreciate it. So Sonny and I are going to sign out for now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.